Hello, and welcome to another edition of A Reader's Paradise. Say, if you like the stories that you're hearing and the interviews that I'm doing, please hop on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. Leave us a 5-star rating along with a review. Your ratings and reviews help others to find the show. Also, stick around to the end of this episode because I have a special preview of a new podcast I'm launching later this summer called Lenny Gray. You will want to listen to this audio drama because it is one for the books. So, folks, today I have something really exciting. I have author Sierra Kay, and here's a really quick bio on Sierra. Sierra Kay is a master storyteller with an MA in writing from DePaul University. Her accomplishments include I can't get that word. Her accomplishments include a New Yorican Poets Cafe short story slam win and featured comedy sketches on stage in theaters around Chicago, including at Second City. She's an award-winning suspense novelist. Her novels From Behind the Curtain, In the Midst of Fire, At the Touch of Love, and Sweet Whispers of the Devil are available online. I tell you, I don't know why my lips and tongue aren't working tonight, but they aren't. Anyway, Sierra Kay, please take a moment to introduce yourself better than I did.
Hi, this is Sierra. I am so happy to be here and so thankful for Earl for giving me this opportunity. Like Earl said, I write suspense novels. I have 4 that are available online right now. They tend to be more of contemporary suspense novels based off of fairy tales, nursery rhymes, just the tales from your childhood. I found out early on those tales were quite dark and lent themselves well to suspense novels. In addition, I write sketch comedy. I actually had rehearsal tonight, so I'm glad I was able to get out there in time for this. We have a show coming up in August. I write poetry and
Well, Sierra, you sound like you are a prolific writer. Now, that's something interesting that I haven't had on the show before. You said you're a sketch comedy writer. Tell us a little bit about that.
So it actually started, I was just hanging out with a friend of mine that I used to work with. She was taking classes at Second City, show at Women's Funny Fest, Chicago Sketch Fest. We traveled to Indianapolis, and so I've just been doing it ever since.
Okay. So is your stuff funny?
Oh, yes, of course. I mean, that's the best feeling. It's when you write something and you're hoping that the audience receives it the way you want them to. And so when you're sitting in the audience sort of like biting your nails and they start laughing and you can see that they're enjoying themselves, it's like the best feeling.
It's the best feeling in the world. So now you are also a novelist. And so you have written several novels, and you say they are based on fairy tales. So tell us a little bit more about how you came about that connection of how did you bridge that with taking a fairy tale and turning it into novels? Can you break that down a little bit for us?
So my very favorite movie of all time is The Wiz. I will sing the songs, and I was talking to a group of friends. And we were talking about, well, what happened if that would become a temporary book? And so that's where from I sort of hooked on suspense and hooked on this theory of recreating or modernizing stories that we've known for years, but giving it a more contemporary feel.
So let me ask you this. This is a writer's question. When you are sitting down to start a book, what is your process like? Do you write in the morning? Do you write at night? Do you write on the fly? What does your process look like? Do you have a writing space that you use?
I write best in the morning.
Okay.
But sometimes, when an idea hits you, you just have to go with it. So, I'm pulling out my phone. I'm writing in the middle of anything, a concert, whatever. If the idea comes and it hits and I need to take a note, then that's what I do. I typically don't write at home. I don't write well in the house. I always feel like I should be doing something else. So usually I'll go to a coffee shop, find a corner, and just spend hours there writing away.
So you don't find the noise at the coffee shop to be distracting to you at all?
No, it's energy.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of feed off of that energy.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you this other question for readers.
Hmm.
What have readers expressed to you? What are some of the things that readers have expressed to you that they like about your novels? Because, I know you travel around and you have, fans and people who read your
Right.
work, and you may have gotten people who came up to you and say, I read your book and.
That it was unexpected.
Oh, really?
They didn't guess what was going to happen. So that makes me feel, really good. And that's why I tell people, if you can guess what's going to happen at the end, let me know, because I need to work a little harder. But that's what the best feedback that I have gotten. Even Sweet Whispers of the Devil, that was originally placed in an anthology before I pulled it out for independent short story. And that, readers have said may have been one of the best stories in the anthology.
Oh.
So I think it's that unexpected ending is that I don't put limits on what anyone could do. I just go where the characters take me.
Okay. Do you, like, for me over the years, whenever I travel someplace, people will come up to me and say that, oh, the character you wrote in this book is my favorite character. When are you going to write another book about that particular character? And so, or sometimes they ask me, who's your favorite character? And the real other question is, which character are you in the book? And so I wanted to ask you, you got that one? Oh, you've got that question?
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So I want to ask you, do you have a favorite character to write that you enjoyed writing?
I don't have a favorite character to write. I think my favorite character and the one that people come up to me and talk to me about the most is in The Mist of Fire. There's a character called Ninja. And he's a male character. He's sort of the bad boy, but sexy at the same time. And, women come up to you fan and are like, who's Ninja? When are you going to write a book just about him? So that is probably the character that people have been talking about the most. As far as most people come up to me, like my friends will come up to me and ask me what character is them. They were like, I know I'm in one of these books. And I'm like, really? You think that I can't write? I needed to base it off of you individually.
Uh-huh.
And so that's what I get more than everybody's looking for themselves in the novels versus, anything else.
Yeah, because they want to know what you really think.
When I write, there's a look. Right. They're trying to pin you down. And I was just like, all of my characters are a compilation of people. So I can't say, it's one person. But yeah, it's always funny how, people are like, is this me? I was like, I don't know. What do you mean is that you? No, it's the character. It's fiction. Remember fiction? So I get that a lot.
Do you ever have you ever been in a situation where people have come up to you wanting to write a book, but, have an idea, but they've never been able to turn that corner and actually sit down and write it? And if so, what advice did you give them?
Absolutely. Anytime that I'm at a live event, you get writers that come up and say, oh my gosh, I wish I could do this. Either I don't have the time or, there are all sorts of roadblocks. And my advice is there are always going to be reasons not to. There's always something else that you can spend your time on. So sometimes you just have to be a little bit selfish in order to get the book done. And it's not going to write itself, so you actually have to write it. So if that means that you can't go to every birthday party, some things, you're just going to have to send a card with somebody and then that's what you have to do. But you just have to write.
Okay. All right. Cool. As a writer, one of the things that I like to say is that my writing is a byproduct of my reading, because I'm an avid reader. I love to read, and I love receiving book recommendations and giving book recommendations. And I also have, some of my favorite writers and my favorite books. So as a writer, can you give us your top 2 or 3 favorite books that you would recommend, that you have recommended time and again?
Now you're going to ask me to remember. So I definitely
it always gets everybody's like,
recommend.
Oh, yeah, because
it's like the minute you ask that question, everything falls out of your head. It's like, oh yeah, I have one. Oh, what's her name? It's so frustrating. I was like, oh sure, I have but I'm going to say Sonia Sanchez because, like I said, I love poetry, and I think the title of the book is "Shake Loose My Skin."
Okay.
And I just love that. It is one of those ones that, I'm constantly flipping through and going back to. So she is one of my favorites. I Wish I Had a Red Dress. That is one of my favorite books.
Is that Pearl Clegg?
I love yes.
Oh, yes.
I love the female characters. I love the dynamics between them. I love the complexity. So I love all of her work.
I have a couple of favorite authors, but one that always comes up when someone asks me that question is my most favorite book is Zora Neale Hurston's "Their Eyes Were Watching God." I can read that book backwards and forwards time and again, and each time I just fall into that story. I fall in love with the characters, of the situations. I mean, just everything. There's just something about that story, the way it's told, that just resonates with me for some reason. I feel like I'm a part of the book. I feel like I've lived that life, in that story. And I just love that story. Let me ask you this. Do you have, do you have a writer that you admire or follow that's out there today? Anybody that you follow on social media as a writer that you say, my goodness, I wish I could be like this writer. Like, for example, for me, there's this Nigerian writer named Chimamanda. And I think it's Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, I believe is it. But anyway, she's a Nigerian writer, and I follow her posts all the time. And she is just a brilliant, brilliant woman. And I love listening to her because she has that, African accent. And, she goes, well, first of all, let me tell you. And I just fall in love with it. She goes, the thing about being a Nigerian. I was like, yeah, what is it? So anyway, is there a person that you follow?
Right now, it's Jordan Peele. He's like my spirit animal. I just love how he's working. With Key and Peele, that sketch comedy piece of it, and now he's doing more of the suspense with his movies. And so he's bridged that two different genres and not putting those limits on where his creativity takes him. Because, I was, after watching Key and Peele, and then you get to his movies, it's just like, really? You're going to... But they're well done. They're thoughtful. And so, right now it's Jordan Peele. He is absolutely my spirit animal, and I am watching everything he does.
Okay. All right. Cool. I have another fun question for you. And this one's gonna cause you to think a little bit. So you have lucked up as a writer, and you have a big Hollywood director and producer that have come to you and green-lighted one of your novels to be turned into a movie. Which novel would you want to be turned into a movie, and who would play the lead roles?
Okay. And all of them is not an answer, right? Okay. I'm gonna go with In the Midst of Fire.
Okay.
And because Ninja is Tyrese, so that makes it easier when you have somebody mentally in mind.
Okay, so Ninja is Tyrese the actor.
Yes.
So your protagonist is not only good looking, they can sing too. Okay.
Right, but it's not necessary. But if he wants to blow, go ahead. I will write a song, and I've never written a song before, but for him, absolutely, have no problem. I'll sit now. Now the music may be a little jacked up, but the words will be right. Okay. That's all I can promise you. So Tyrese, who else? Because we would need Hawk and Giselle. see, now I'm Lenny Kravitz's daughter for Giselle. What's
Okay.
Zoe Kravitz?
Hmm.
She would play Giselle, and then who would play Hawk? I don't know. TBD.
To be
I'm
determined.
gonna to be determined. Yes.
Okay. All right. So cool. So
'Cause no one comes to mind that would have that feel yet. Yeah.
that feel yet, and what is that? What is that feel that you're looking for, that you would want to have in a performer or an actor?
So with Hawk, Hawk would need that quiet strength for it to be believable. And that is sort of hard to come by. Some people are like, straight alpha. I'm just going to rush ahead and do this. Or they're too far the other way. So just to have that quiet strength to be able to say, I'm going to endure until X, that is what I would need for Hawk. And I don't have a actor that comes to mind immediately for that.
Okay, so let me ask you this question, because you are a female and you have mentioned male characters. Is it difficult for you to write male characters? I mean, how do you structure your men to come out the way that you want them to come out?
Well, I have 4 brothers.
Okay.
So I kind of know, with males. So yeah, and trust me, they're all characters in their own way.
Yeah. Okay. So in writers' terms,
in their
your
own
brothers
way.
have ended up in your books. Some version of your brothers.
Don't tell them.
Okay, I won't tell them.
Yes. Or my brothers, male friends, because and especially in certain situations, I'll call a male friend. Is this believable? Does this ring true? Mm-hmm. Would somebody say that? Would somebody do that? Mm-hmm. And so they've definitely given me feedback over the years just to give that more authentic voice.
Okay. All right. Now let me ask you this question.
Honestly, the book I'm working on now is based off of Red Riding Hood. And so there are actually 3 male characters. So this is probably be the first book that is this dominated by men, where they're all 3 need to be strong but unique characters. And so that one is the one that I need to make sure that I get right, because it's so pivotal to the book.
So pivotal to the book. So if you could build your perfect male character, give me 2 qualities that perfect male character would have that would resonate with other readers.
See, you put perfect and male in the same sentence, and remember, I have 4 brothers. So I'm not sure how that is going to work, but I guess for readers, we'll get out of real life for a second. For readers, I think the perfect male character has to be, and this perfect character overall, they have to be authentic. Okay. So it can't go too far the other way. They have to be real. They have to have, some type of, pain, emotion they have to touch. Even the ones that aren't good, even the bad ones, they have to have those layers. So they have to be authentic. And what else besides authentic and believable? Well, I guess that's the same thing as authentic. Mm-hmm. They have to be, honestly, have a certain level of attraction for the reader.
Okay.
And I'm not just saying like physical attraction. There has to be something about them that draws them in. So even when you're writing characters that aren't necessarily good, they have to have something that draws the reader in to give them that attraction to say, I don't know if it's, I'm trying to save them or, whatever, but there has to be an attraction for the reader.
Okay. Let me ask you this question. In the process of writing your book, or since I'm a writer too, a lot of times when I'm in the process of writing a book, I find something called flow, that I call flow, where I'm just in this zone or this stream of consciousness, and I am experiencing the book as I'm writing it, and it's just like it just flows, and I'm just lost in that world for hours upon hours upon hours. Have you ever experienced something like that?
I have. Sweet Whispers of the Devil, that had the flow from beginning to end.
Mm.
There was never a point where I had to sit back from that book and say, okay, I have to figure out this or I have to figure out that or what's the motivation for this or that. That book, it was just like, here it is. It just came out of my fingers and appeared on the screen. I was like, thank you, and kept going about my business. But Sweet Whispers of the Devil, and I don't know if it's because it's a short story, but I had that flow from beginning to end.
And tell us a little bit about Sweet Whispers from the Devil, the storyline. Give us a taste of the storyline, because I believe I believe we're going to listen to an excerpt from that book tonight. Am I correct?
You are correct. Sweet Whispers of the Devil is actually based off of The Old Woman Who Lives in the Shoe. Because I have some questions. One, why does she have so many kids? Where are the baby daddies? And what's going on while she's living in the shoe? She had so many kids that she didn't know what to do. Why? Where all these kids come from? And why isn't there somebody with her with these kids? Because there were two at some point. So, but I wanted to make a contemporary version of that, in which is where Sweet Whispers of the Devil came about. And so it's about a woman, Victoria, and she was kidnapped as a child by her own father. He clearly is not a nice man. It ends up being returned to her mother, but now she finds out that her son is missing, and her father has kidnapped her son, and so, or one of her sons, and so she has to find a way to get him back.
Okay. So I think this will be a great time to listen to an excerpt from Sierra Kay's novel, Sweet Whispers from the Devil.
Your mother should have let me shoot that bastard years ago, Monique growled. She emerged from the Louisiana bayou and prided herself on her ability to shoot out an alligator's eyeball. Her ballsy stance seemed to be opposite of her job as a social worker. She explained once, there's nothing that keeps folks in line like the potential for a bullet in the ass. Tori gripped the edge of the kitchen table before collapsing into Luke's chair, reclaiming that space, as though holding at ground zero could make him appear. She mentally reviewed previous days, wondering what, if anything, she had missed, wondering how Richard knew about her children. Where the hell did he come from? Monique sat in what would normally be Christian's seat at the table before crossing her legs at her ankle. Sweetie, what you don't know about your father will fill a football stadium. But I haven't seen him since that day. What more was there to know? Tori demanded, eyeing her with guarded interest. Monique exhaled and stared out at the sheer curtain covering the kitchen window. The neighbor's car rolled up into their garage. Your father never bothered you again, but he reached out to your mother, demanding money or joint custody. Tori buried her hands in her palms before sharing thoughts with Monique. I begged Mom, begged her to leave. She had done it before. She could do it again. Antoine came over and massaged Tori's shoulders. She covered his hand and gave them a quick squeeze of thanks. Monique explained, Richard's a bounty hunter. He has resources at his disposal and knowledge of legal and illegal methods of getting information that law enforcement only wish they had. Understanding rained on Tori, illuminating the sacrifices her mother had made to protect them, to protect her. He bled her dry for years, forcing her to pay for leaving him. Why do you think your mother didn't have any money? No pension, no 401k, no nothing. And because we didn't run, she sacrificed every penny she had. No, she would have told me. Tori and her mother shared a history, having survived the devil whose velvety voice caressed an ear with a steep timbre. But its words branched through the quadrants of the brain before wrapping it in a vice grip of terror. No, she wouldn't share something like that, Monique contradicted. She said he gave her you, so she wouldn't regret that part of things. She did whatever was necessary to keep you safe. That meant writing checks. A piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Revenge, money. Oh my God, Tori exclaimed. Now she can't pay him anymore. Luke is Teddy's son. Could he know that? Tori met Teddy Weiland III during her freshman year at Carleton University. Faye attended a fundraiser in the engineering department where she worked as an office assistant. In addition to being one fine specimen of a man, he had finesse, polish. And before she knew it, he finessed his way into her life and polished off her virginity. Of course, the Disney fairy tale she'd been spoon-fed since birth didn't apply in this situation. When she excitedly told Teddy the news of her unexpected pregnancy, he smiled, embraced her, went out for the proverbial gallon of milk, and kept it moving. Enter the wife, the one he neglected to inform Tori existed. The wife who wrote a check and told Tori she handed over the minute their family physician confirmed the termination of her pregnancy. Monique's weathered hand, which still sported the diamond from husband number 2, stroked Tori. Sweetie, you have to listen to me. It's not about the money. I don't think it ever was. Your father mentally tortured Honey for years. Somehow he always knew exactly what kind of cash he could get her hands on. Always with a laugh and a thinly veiled. You can always go to court. Or when you are older. Maybe I'll drop by and see my baby girl. This is about control. He needs a puppy. Tori could feel her muscles tighten. Even though Antoine continued to knead her shoulders and back, she leaned back, her head resting on Antoine's stomach.
Wow, what a great reading. Ah, man, I was right there. I was into that as from the opening line talking about the pride of shooting somebody in an eyeball. I was like, now that's I'm like, I don't know if I've ever read a line of text that said that. And I'm like, man, that has to be a bad motor scooter. You had to really get them, man, to shoot you in your eyeball. I mean, that's a specific part. I'm gonna just shoot you dead in your eye. Just pow. You know, I mean, wow. You know, if no one has ever told you, you have a wonderful narration voice. You have great pacing with it, and you can tell that you know this story and you know these characters. So again, I may have asked you this already, but now I'm going to ask you, now that you've read this piece, again, what was the deeper inspiration for this piece of literature?
I think the deeper inspiration, well, of course, it's suspense. So something has to happen to somebody. And it can't be pretty. But I wanted to, and as crazy as this sounds, I don't let like my nieces, my nephews, all the kids in my life read my novels because I call it grown folks' business, and they're not allowed to read grown folks' business. So, but this one, I wanted to write something that still had that darkness in it, but I would feel comfortable with them reading. And so you had to, so that was where I started out at. So there's some, decisions that I made in the book were specifically to keep it a little PG-13, basically. But outside of it, being based on an old woman that lived in a shoe, it is that, it's about relationships. And she has a broken relationship with her father. So when you talk about the old woman that lived in a shoe, she had so many children, she didn't know what to do. Why was she in that place? And I was like, she had to have some type of issues with some man in her life that would lead to her having issues with the men that she dated. So that's where I got this very evil father, and, it just went from there.
Yeah, because I can imagine if you're the old woman who lived in a shoe and had so many kids and nobody helped you, you would have an attitude toward men. And it would.
There's some issues. Yeah, there's some issues there. So that's wrong. Yeah.
And there's some failed relationship issues there.
In this case, it's, So, I started with her father. So, her father had been mentally torturing her mother for years. Her mother had eventually left the father, but the father had tracked them down. And then, of course, her first relationship was with this guy who up and left her when he found out that she was pregnant. So, for her, she had all these things that she had to battle, in her life as far as, trying to get to the point where she could have a healthy relationship.
So let's pull back a little bit, because I know this is something that a lot of readers read books about, whether it's nonfiction or fiction. They read books to try to understand relationships better. And I like to say that every piece of
Mm-hmm.
writing, no matter whether it's fiction or nonfiction, presents an argument of some type. And so just in the course of listening to you, you've mentioned several times about, relationships and, finding that good, or people looking for good relationships. I think everyone looks for a good, healthy, loving, respectful relationship. But in the real world, that is so hard to come by for some people. And so with your book dealing with relationships, is there a particular relationship argument that you're trying to solve in your book, like the why, and to try to answer it? Or is there a specific thing that you're trying to, wrestle with to get readers to see from a different perspective in your work when it comes to relationships?
Wow, that's a good question. You're trying to make me think. Um,
Well, that's what we do.
I
You're a
think
writer. You
for
think.
me, yeah.
You wrote the book. You got to
I
think
think
about
for
it.
me,
Yeah.
right. I know. There isn't a mold. So I think, and I read an article, it's like the biggest reasons why relationships fail is because of unmet expectations.
Mm.
So even, most people say it's money,
Mm-hmm.
but the money part is because of the unmet expectation. Somebody expecting you to have some and you don't. That's an unmet expectation. So for me, when I create these stories and then we talk about the relationships with people, it's, I try to do it from that mindset is like, okay, well, where is the fail in this relationship? Where is the unmet expectation? And, and it doesn't have to be good, bad, or indifferent. It just is. So in her case, she has issues with trusting men.
Yeah.
Because she has a history of not being able to. It just is. Does that mean that she's not worthy? No, it's just a part of her personal history. And then, and I actually forgot what I was gonna say next. So go ahead.
Okay. You dropped a really, valuable wisdom nugget there when you talked about unmet expectations that are, some of the reasons or a huge reason as to why relationships fail. I would like to add to that and also say unexpressed expectations of a person. Because we can have expectations in our mind that we think the other person knows that we want, but if we don't explicitly express, this is what I expect of you, then the other person may not know that they're not meeting expectations. Now, if you explicitly express it, say, hey, when I go to bed at night, I'd like to get into a clean, made up bed every night, and I don't want to have to crawl into bed with the sheets all balled up. And if that's what you want, and you get that out of a mate, then you're happy. But if that one thing that your mate or whatever does that just annoys you and drives you crazy can, go from an annoyance to a grievance and even to resentment.
Absolutely.
Towards towards them. So I like to think that a lot of that readers, when they read, they are looking. They pick up a book and they read the cover and they say, "Oh, this is interesting because either I'm going through something similar, or I know someone who's going through something similar, or I want to find the perfect book to escape into." And so when a reader picks up a book, there has to be something that resonates with them, with this particular, with the particular storyline that the author has, presented. And I even know for me, when I think about, writing, even when I write my fiction, I'm like wrestling with something. There's something that I just can't, I can't, find a solution to, but I'm willing to step in the ring with it and discover it and figure it out and try to understand it. Because I think as writers, our job is to, write stories and to help other people understand life and our journey through it just a little bit better, even if it has, pain, disappointment, setbacks, and, other things like that. I think that's just part of the journey. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And being vulnerable to your reader. So, being able to say, yes, I've had pain and this is how I'm going to put it in the book, but it's okay because this is my process. So if you're not able to be vulnerable to your reader, then I don't think you're able to give an authentic book. I don't think it will resonate as much.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with you too, that you really have to be, when you're a writer, you're really putting yourself out there, and you have to be aware, of that. For example, I remember this was years ago. I was at a book signing in Washington, D.C. I was signing my book, Taken for Granted. And it was about two people who were in miserable marriages that were falling apart. And they were being taken for granted by their significant others. And I remember standing at B. Dalton Books at, I think it's Union Station in Washington, D.C. at the time. This woman comes up to the table. She picks up my book and she says, "You wrote this?" And I said, "Yeah, I wrote this." And she goes, "Shit, taken for granted. What the hell does a man know about being taken for granted?" I was like, "What?" Yeah, man. She came at my head like, and so she I said, "Well, flip it over and read it." And she just said, "Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm." "And you wrote this?" I said, "Yeah, I wrote this." "Mm-mm. You had a woman to help you write this because this could not possibly have come from a man." And so then I said, "Oh Lord, here we go." And so I just had to say, "Okay, I am a wordsmith and you want to step into the boxing ring with me." I said, "Well, come on, girl, let's go. I will rope a dope with you." I said, "I will." Bottom line is, by the time because she came at me like I was 5 miles of bad road. I mean, and it was clear that the description of the book and even the title itself did something to her. It resonated with her in a particular way.
Right.
And it was, and it was something about that, perhaps the situation in that story was something she was going through. And the fact that she came to the table, read the title, read the book, it like brushed up against a thorn that was causing her some pain. But bottom line is, she ended up buying 2 copies of the book. And I was like, whew.
Hey.
Yeah. So with that being said,
you converted her.
Yeah, I converted her. With that being said, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So with that being said, your book title, Sweet Whispers from the Devil. Now, that doesn't seem like it goes together. Sweet Whispers from the Devil. How did you come up with that title? Because it stands out, and you don't. I would think that people don't want to hear sweet whispers from the devil, but then some people may want to hear sweet whispers from the devil so that they can be bad.
Have heard sweet whispers,
and they have done things that they said the devil made me do it.
Exactly. That devil was whispering in your ear. You're like, oh, yeah. Now, some people have heard those sweet whispers, but sometimes that's what it is. Like I said, the male character, Richard, her father, he was that dude. I mean, he's just an evil man. And so, but he plays with people's emotions. He gets into your head. And he just kind of chips away at it. So, you may not always see the physical manifestation of abuse, but sometimes you do see the mental manifestation. And that's what he was a pro at. He was a pro at getting in people's heads. And that's how he tortured, her mother. He got into his head. And then after she left him, she wasn't coming back, so he just kept torturing her. He was like, okay, well, what can I do? I can take away her security. So that's what he was doing. By taking away her money, it was taking away her security. So, that was the type of person he was. So, sometimes you have those people in your life that are just kind of whispering at you. They're those master manipulators.
Oh, yeah.
And, you may not have the physical evidence of it, but it impacts you nonetheless.
it impacts you nonetheless. Which brings up a even larger question for readers and people who are going through this journey of life is, being mindful of who is in your inner circle, who you lend your ear, time, and attention to. Who do you let in, and are they benefiting you, or are they uplifting? Are they lifting you up, or are they tearing you down? And sometimes, yeah, and sometimes, you can be so emotionally off center that you can't think logically to see a person for who they are. There's a saying that goes something like, we understand life backwards. In other words, we have to go through all this shiggity and get to the other side of the shiggity and then look back for it to make sense. Said, oh, if this hadn't happened, then I wouldn't have gotten to this, or this needed to happen for me to see, this. And so I think when we as readers escape into a novel, we are looking to escape into someone else's problem so that we can see the fictional character's problem, but also it helps us to understand our problems a little bit better. It helps us to see it helps us to see better, because we all, I believe, have those blind spots in our lives. That's why we always say, I can't believe I was blindsided like that, or I can't believe I didn't see that. But we all have those blind spots, in our life. Yeah. Well, Sierra, it has been a wonderful conversation with you. We are right at 45 minutes. So why don't we do this? Tell readers where they can find your book, where they can follow you on social media, and those sorts of things.
Okay, well, my books are available on Amazon. Both From Behind the Curtain and Sweet Whispers of the Devil are available on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, you can read them for free. You can also follow me on Facebook, author Sierra K, Instagram, author Sierra K, and on Twitter, Sierra K1, and my website, sierrak.com.
Okay, and I have to ask this because I know some listeners out there are going to ask, when are you going to narrate one of your books with that voice of yours? Because because you really need to sit down and start narrating that work, because the way you jumped into that and the way you flowed with that, you left this realm and you went into the realm of that book. You were those characters. I mean, you were so authentically that narrator and those characters. It was a switch. I mean, I literally just stopped doing anything to pay attention to that. So is there an audiobook narrated by you in the works someplace? Has there been a thought about that? Yes, no?
There hasn't been a thought about that previous to this, but yeah, it's definitely, because I do want to convert my books into audiobooks, so maybe I need to look into doing that myself. So thank you very much for that. I'll definitely look into it.
Yeah.
Well, stay tuned.
Yes, you do. Sierra, thank you once again for taking the time to come and speak with us here on A Reader's Paradise.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. This conversation has been great. So I appreciate you for having me on, Earl.
Wonderful. So, folks, this wraps it up for this edition of A Reader's Paradise. If you like the interviews that you're hearing and you like the stories that are being performed for you, please consider giving us a 5-star rating and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, happy reading. Hi, this is Earl Sewell, host of the podcast A Reader's Paradise. I'm here to let you know about a new audio drama that I have created called Lenny Gray. It is a bi-weekly show that you can find out on Apple Podcasts, on Spreaker.com, on Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. So, what I'm doing here right now is giving you a preview of the show. Season 1 is up and running, and I hope that you will go over, check it out, leave a rating and a review. Until then, I hope you enjoy this preview of the audio drama Lenny Gray. Katie Books Productions presents Lenny Gray, an audio drama written, produced, and narrated by Earl Sewell. Previously on Lenny Gray.
I got to have you, Lenny. I ain't gonna let no other man get a hold of you. I aim to be the only man in your life for the rest of your days. I mean that. So either you marry me tonight, or you don't marry in your lifetime. I'll make sure of it.
There was an ultimatum in Curly's voice and an uncompromising fire in his eyes. He would beat her into her grave if she didn't do what he wanted. And Ida, his mean-spirited mother, would stand by and allow him to do it. Both of them had caverns of blackness so deep in their souls that even the light of God couldn't reach the bottom of them. He'd hit her before for trying to break up with her. He punched her so hard that she had a headache for 2 days. She couldn't go to the sheriff. He was another member of the white side of Curly's family. Besides, Sheriff Quinney cared as much about a colored man beating his woman as he did about shooting, hanging, or placing a colored person in jail. It just didn't matter to him, one way or the other. Lenny Gray wanted to move, but felt as if something had forced her body to become paralyzed. Curly took a slightly gentler approach. He pulled her close to him, attempting to ease her fear. He pressed her cheek against his chest and combed his fingers through her hair. Lenny Gray felt tears stinging the back of her eyes when she inhaled the strong scent of moonshine that was seeping through his skin. You belong to me. I wanted you the moment you started to blossom. I said to myself, Curly, that Lenny Gray is going to be your wife. You got them pretty gray eyes, long black hair. You the prize of Sweetwater. Well, my prize anyway. That's why I kept coming around your daddy. I wasn't coming around so much for him as I was doing it to try to get close to you. I wanted you to like me. Don't you remember how I was always bringing you stuff you needed? If you needed new shoes that your daddy couldn't afford to get right away, I helped him out. In fact, I'm the one who got you them shoes you got on your goddamn feet now. Most folks around this town ain't never gonna know what it feel like to have shoes on their feet. As the preacher still in the wagon, boy. Lenny Gray looked into Ida's face, which had an impatient expression.
Yeah, he's still there,
Curly answered.
I'm gonna go get him so y'all can be married and we can get back before the rain starts,
said Ida as she stepped off the train tracks and walked towards the road. Curly stepped back and placed Lenny Gray's face between the palms of his calloused hands. He looked so deeply into her eyes that she felt her soul wince.
I know you love me. You may not say it or know how to show your feelings for me, but I know and understand that you do. I'm the best man you could ever hope for, and the sooner you let that settle into your head, the better. Don't make no sense for you try to run away from a good man like me. Shh. Don't talk. Just let me hold your shivering body close. You carry my family inside of you. There ain't no way in the world I'm gonna allow a pretty girl like you to run away from me to be mistreated by some fool. I'm gonna take care of you. You won't have to worry about nothing except taking care of the shanty I'm gonna build and the babies we gonna put on this earth. Lenny, We gonna make a lot of pretty babies together. Lenny Gray felt as if she had just fallen out of the trouble tree and hit every branch on the way down. She was standing on unsteady legs. She didn't want to be married, and she didn't want a life in a leaky shanty filled with babies. That much she knew. That way of life was all too common in this town. In an act of desperation, she pushed Curly away from her and began running again.
Lenny, come back here!